The buck stops with me. I should have not let that happen. And but once the punt team was out there, there was two choices: use your last time out, or take a penalty. And I decided to take a penalty.
Did you know when you set the offense on the field for that drive that you were not going to punt? In that down 17, 8 minutes left?
Yes, yes.
Should that have been better communicated to everybody on the team?
It should have.
Further evidence that the New England Patriots reside in the brains of every coach and every team they face, Big Cat. It was from Sunday afternoon, 7 minutes left in the game, 17-point deficit. Freddie Kitchens decided we're going for it no matter what. We're not going to punt. He decided that before the drive started. So when 4th and 11 rolled around, the punt team went out on the field. He deliberately took a penalty in lieu of using a timeout so he could go for it on 4th and 16 instead. And he admits on Monday he failed to communicate to anyone that he wasn't going to punt there. And this is kind of like the reverse Pat Shurmur from a couple of weeks ago when Shurmur did punt in that spot. I think Kitchens was determined not to punt in that spot. The key is you got to tell somebody. And this gets back to what kind of a learning curve are we going to tolerate from a new head coach? Because you can look at this, Big Cat, and say, this isn't part of your learning curve. This is something you either understand or you don't. This is basic human communication. You can be coaching Pop Warner and understand that you need to tell the other people on the sideline, we're going to go for it on 4th down on this drive. Don't put the punt team on the field at any time.
Yeah, it's coaching the little things, and communication is a big part of that. And it's similar to the Matt Nagy conversation going into the Freddie Kitchens conversation. Dysfunctional teams do dysfunctional things, and you see this with Freddie Kitchens not having a grasp on, communicating with his special teams, with his offense. That's just crazy to me. Would you ever see a, competent head coach doing something like this? Absolutely not. And I think you bring up a great point. The learning curve, especially in the NFL now, teams expect to win right away. The talk in the offseason about the Browns and the talent they've added and what they're going to do, it's got to be absolutely maddening to watch something like this happen. Do you think, Mike, and we never talk about another man's job. Let's preface it with this. We never talk about another man's job. Do you think there's a possibility the Browns could move on from Freddie Kitchens after only 1 year?
Well, I think they should consider it, but I don't think it's a strong possibility because the Browns are still so bruised by the fact that they made too rash of a decision with guys like Rob Chudzinski, and they had too many coaches they ran off early in Jimmy Haslam's tenure. It's almost like they're determined to not continue that, so they kept Hugh Jackson longer than they should have. And I think they may keep Freddie Kitchens longer than they should have. Look, this was an experiment. This was a calculated risk. They didn't want to hire a new head coach and keep Kitchens as offensive coordinator and then have Kitchens continue to do as well as he did last year and lose him after this season. So what the hell? Just make him the head coach. I'm at that argument. If you're concerned you're going to lose him after this year because he's working so well with Baker Mayfield, just make him the head coach. But you have to be willing to admit defeat. That's the key. If it just didn't work, right? You lined up all the chemicals and you put them in the test tubes and you lit the Bunsen burner and it blew up. You got to be able to declare it a failure and move on. And this whole thing about I'm learning as I go, that's just not an acceptable explanation to me. You either have it or you don't. I feel bad for him because a year ago this morning, Big Cat, a year ago, he was the running backs coach in Cleveland, minding his own business. They fire Hugh Jackson. They fire Todd Haley. Next thing you know, he's the offensive coordinator. Next thing you know, he's doing well enough to be considered for a head coach. He's never been groomed to be a head coach. So he's been thrust into this job with no preparation. The question is, how much time does he get to learn the job on the fly? And, a fully functioning team would say not very much.
Here's an idea. What if the Browns keep Freddie Kitchens, keep him at his current head coaching salary, make him the offensive coordinator, then go out and hire a head coach? So just demote him in-house.
I like that. I think contractually they'd have a hard time pulling it off. He'd probably have the ability to say, I'll just take my money and leave. But that's in hindsight, they should have kept him as the offensive coordinator and they should have hired somebody else to be the head coach.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.